Let's go fancy backdrop.
I do have a fancy backdrop now. That's a great segue. We are live ahead of the sprint race at the Belgian Grand Prix. Terry and I will be taking you through the next hour. We have a lot of things to talk about, lots of chips on the table. People wondering Mercedes versus Ferrari, given some of the positions heading into the sprint race this week. And also, you'll notice it's just Terry and I because Zach is at Spa this weekend. He had so much fun with us at Silverstone. He said, I want to go to another race. So he is out there in Belgium for this weekend, but he'll be back with us next week for Hungary. Terry,
he could have
how are
logged
you?
in.
Is he logged in?
He could have. Come on, Zach.
Who knows? Maybe he'll even show up in the chat. How are you doing this morning? It's 5 a.m. here in Boston, so I've got my coffee here. I'm ready to get up to your level. But how are you doing?
I'm good. It's not so early here. It's quite nice actually. 10 a.m. in the morning in the UK, so quite a nice time. I'm busy laying turf in between filming my garden project. But apart from that, I'm all good. Ready for another weekend. Ready for this rain that's in the air, not just here in the UK, but in Belgium. I hope Zach's got his poncho.
I think wherever Zach goes, it rains because it also rained a bit on us in Silverstone. So maybe that's an omen for Zach.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's a good segue if we start launching the screen share here. I've been tracking this weather for the last several days. The rain is supposed to really ramp up at the exact start of the Grand Prix, 3 p.m. local time in Belgium. This is where we start going from some lighter rain to a higher percentage chance of rain. Now, the amount has gone down over the last few days, but it looks like we're definitely going to get some precipitation all throughout the Grand Prix. So number one question we've been getting is if you could pick any chip to use this week, which one would you pick? For me, that's got to be Limitless. You think back at some of the other wet sprints we've had, Miami this year, Brazil last year, it's been a home run to use them. So if you have no negative heading into this weekend, I would.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't got it. I used it in Miami to great effects on that weekend. So I would say if you've got it, it's probably a good one looking at our weather forecast. I mean, we all know what Spa's like with the weather, isn't it? It's all over the place. I mean, half the track could be dry, half it could be wet. So it's got the potential to just throw everything. And we know the rookies haven't been doing very well in the wet. I think there's some interesting statistics going around, isn't there? That every time it rains, the rookies tend to have issues with it. And I think a lot of us have got a bunch of rookies in our team. So I think if you've got a bunch of rookies in your team and you've got no negative and the rain's coming, it's not a bad bet, is it?
Yeah, I actually had the statistics up just to go over this. So if you look at the very first race in Australia and the very last race at Silverstone, you can see those rookies that struggled in both races. Bortoleto out in both. Lawson, he has two assets here, but he was out in both. Hadjar out in both. So you've got to be very careful. But one rookie that is very popular that survived both those wet races is Ollie Bearman. So I think that could be in part why he's so popular this week. Double Haas in the top 10 to start the sprint this week, and Bearman, knock on wood, maybe okay in the rain. So one bean on the scale for Ollie Bearman this week to start us off.
Yeah, he tends to go off in the wet, but keep it together, doesn't he? He tends to have offs, but actually keep the car going and find a way to get it back on the track, doesn't he? I know he's had a couple where you've gone on, but actually, absolutely. I mean, I think the comments, Christoph's in there, no negative week. Like I say, I think if you've got it, I'm not sure weather-wise where there's many places apart from here where you do it. Yeah, unless some trench comes up on a forecast somewhere, which obviously you can't predict. So I think this is one of the ones where you'd have to say if you've got it in the locker and with the forecast, like Adam said, right when the race starts, or at least when it gets going. And we're not talking about before or after. We're talking about at some point, if it's 3 o'clock, even if it goes earlier or later, it's going to impact the race, isn't it, to some degree?
Absolutely. And to put a finer point on it, to start this week, Terry, you had used your no negative brilliantly earlier this season in Miami. Zach and I still have it on the table. We're still to see what Zach's going to play this week, but I can tell you already, my no negative is active this week, Christoph. So if you need some motivation, I'm in, and I hope you are too. Now, on the trend of chips, let's look over at Kevster because he has this question, thoughts about Limitless.
Oh.
And he's already used no negative, so wondering what other chip could we use this week? For me, there's just enough rain in the forecast. You've got Ferraris and Mercedes a little bit out of place, and we're not really sure what to make of their race pace yet. I would hold off on Limitless. I think you have a good opportunity coming up in Hungary or right after the break. You could use it as Zandvoort. I think we want a dry race where the top 5 drivers and top 2 constructors are really predictable, whereas this week, you could have a little bit of mayhem. So I think Limitless is the one chip that I would wait on.
Yeah, I think that Ferrari Mercedes thing comes into play here, doesn't it? What are your top 5? I think everyone's locked in with the top 3. You know, your Piastri, Norris, and Verstappen. But actually, you probably say Leclerc's in there as well. But then where do you go for number 5? Is it a George Russell? Is it Lewis Hamilton come back for the pack? Is it something like that that's going to play a part on it? So I think for me, it still puts a doubt. I did toy with the times 3, if I'm honest, in terms of a chip, because of McLaren's speed and their dominance. That they look like they're going to be strong here, if I'm honest. But the weather's kind of put me off playing that chip. Adam and I was saying just for a couple of hours, I'm more thinking potentially hungry for that one. Just purely on the fact I think that the McLaren dominance is going to show over this one and the next track, to be honest. And what we saw from Oscar yesterday was a pretty commanding performance in the sprint qualifying, which makes me think that Lando, if he can get his laps together, get back on it, we're going to see a McLaren 1-2. And if you go back to Silverstone, even with that 10-second penalty, Oscar was comfortably second place, wasn't he? So I know obviously Max spun and that made a difference on that side of things. But even so, you kind of felt that it was a McLaren 1-2 all day long, even with a 10-second penalty, which highlights the dominance and the updates they've brought as well this week.
You know, Terry, that's a good point too. And while we're talking about chips, I know autopilot is another one that folks are really looking at, potentially running Lando and Oscar and then running the autopilot chip. But I think we should wait on that one too, because of how good Oscar Piastri's been. Lando's won the last 2 races and still been outscored by Oscar. You can see the pace has been really in Oscar's favor through the first 2 sessions of the weekend. So I think that autopilot, you're just going to put the 2x on Oscar and it's going to stay there. You're only buffering against if he breaks this really long streak of consecutive race finishes. I know he's approaching almost 40 races now that he's finished every race. I know that's put a little bad juju in the air. And also, I think his second to last DNF was at Spa, but I think he's as safe as could be, you know, considering the risk is always out there of a DNF.
Yeah. Interesting. I think Matt's question in the chat just there very quickly is a very similar question to what I've got at the moment. So Piastri, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Bortoletto, Ocon, Ferrari, and Mercedes, but only 0.9 spare. Would you change Ocon for Stroll? That's where we are. I mean, bringing on to next, have you locked in your team? No, I'm still toying with it in true Terry fashion. I've got a couple of options. so no, it's not quite locked in yet. It's almost locked in, I'd say.
I've locked in my team that I'm going to show in just a few minutes, but the last time I locked in a chip was Miami. I locked it in before the show, and then all hell broke loose. That's where Charles Leclerc went off the circuit on the installation lap. Everyone was saying, no negative. And it was too late for me. So I don't know if it's going to turn out well, but you'll see in a few minutes how it looks. Terry, let's look at the grid for the sprint race rather, that's coming up at the top of the hour. Like you said, McLaren dominance at the top. Max, always good at this circuit, right between them in the middle. Charles Leclerc in P4, and then a very interesting rest of the top 10. We've got double Haas, Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly up in the top 10, Hadjar and Bortoletto. You've got to scroll all the way down to find George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Kimi Antonelli. So that's where some of the interesting overtake opportunities are going to be in this sprint. For those of you who didn't see qualifying yesterday, Kimi went off the track, caused some damage to his floor and diffuser. That put him out in SQ1. The gravel kicked back onto the track and was picked up by Russell, who also had some damage. So this isn't indicative of Mercedes race pace. It seemed like one incident that just messed up both cars.
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes dreadfully unlucky, weren't they? Sort of Kimi. I'm not convinced on George's excuse that he got damage from the gravel from Kimi's car, but we give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But I think, cooler temperatures as well. We know suits Mercedes. You kind of expect them to come back in. Lots of niggles with the Mercedes engines. So yesterday we saw Aston Martin sort of have a bit of a problem, then fix it very quickly. Obviously, Carlos Sainz in FP1 had that gremlin sort of crawling, which when you consider what he had on the grid as well this season. So there feels like there's a few gremlins in the Mercedes engines that might be sort of lurking about. Not quite sure if that's anything to worry about. I know that Colapinto starting from the pit lane. I've seen that this morning. No surprise there from where he is. You can make setup changes. I think Max has very much got a dry setup. So if it rains at any time between now and the sprint, he's probably going to be in trouble. But the forecast looks good for the sprint, which is why I think Red Bull have gone for that setup they've gone for, knowing they can change it. Obviously, we're not in the old sprint ones anymore where you've got to keep the setup all the way through. Ferrari looked extremely low, to be honest. But then when you can change it in part for me after the sprint race, I'm not overly worried about that, if I'm honest, compared to, like, say, what the previous rules we had where you couldn't change it. So I don't know. I mean, George has put there that, he's not too sure about the gravel affected Georgia. I'm not too sure they haven't looked on the pace as such, have they? Even though it's not indicative of their performance, I wouldn't say Mercedes have looked as strong as the other ones on there.
You make a great point, Terry, too. With the Parc Ferme after the sprint before Grand Prix qualifying, you could see a pretty big shuffling of everything, especially as teams are preparing a higher downforce setup for tomorrow and that potential rain. Does that bring the likes of some of these drivers up here back down into the midfield in the back of the pack, or is this sustainable for the likes of Ocon and Behrman?
Yeah, and I think also in the sprint race, we don't get lots of overtakings, do we? Traditionally, it's normally a bit of a parade, isn't it, at times? Especially with 7 kilometers here, you kind of think that famous last words now, probably going to get a bunch, aren't we? But normally they follow each other around, don't they, for a lot of the sprint race? I think it's 11 laps, is it? It's not long. Just because of the length of Spa. So I'm not convinced that order we're seeing there is going to shake up too much. I think teams will use it for a bit more of a testing ground, a bit more of a FP session and such. Certainly if you're at the bottom end.
To a point you made a moment ago about Franco Colapinto starting from the pit lane, that's going to be one less overtake for Antonelli, probably something he was going to plan to do off the line. So just think about it if you're running Mercedes or Kimi, that'd be one less position gained and overtake because he'll be starting now P19. All right, let's get to some of these questions in the chat. I know a lot of you have been lining these up. Good morning, Nixie. Welcome aboard.
Let's get to the like button first. Have they hit the like button?
If you haven't hit the like button, please do.
Please
Terry will hold your lineups hostage until you hit the like button enough times. So please be sure to hit it.
I can't hit it myself. Otherwise, otherwise I would. Can I? Hold on, let me try. Give us an extra like so we can to lineups.
Perfect. Pad the stats. Kip2 Mike wants to know thoughts on Gasly. Gasly's looked pretty good in the last few races. I think he's also fairly strong in wet conditions. We looked at how a lot of drivers did in Australia and at Silverstone in the wet conditions. Gasly survived them both. So I think for those of us that can't afford Stroll and one of the Haas drivers, and I'm in this boat too, I think perhaps a Stroll Gasly lineup could be quite popular this week. I think just 0.2 million off of that.
Yeah, I think Gasly is one of those ones where he's looking at it. He's not looking like he's going to potentially go up a huge amount, but I think in terms of an experienced driver in these sort of conditions, you'd kind of hope that he'd not get a DNF and go that side of it.
Yeah, I'm hoping too, starting P8 in the sprint, he could cop a point or two. Basically just hold off Hadjar, maybe make a run at Behrman, you get a few points, and then you're off to the races. He needs, let's come back over here. He needs 7 points for 0.6 million. If he gets 1 or 2 in the sprint, qualifies P10, that's another point, and then a couple overtakes in the Grand Prix, you're there. So with 3 sessions, getting 7 points isn't as crazy as it would be on a normal weekend.
Matt's got an interesting question. I think this one's going to come up. Stroll versus Ocon is going to come up quite a bit. We had that one, didn't we? Just before we literally came on air. So, see, I can get Stroll in as well. my line is all over the place. What's on air?
I heard an outrageous nickname for Stroll this week, Terry, that I want to run past you.
Oh, go on.
Wet Senna. That he is so good in these wet conditions that I think fantasy strategists are starting to lean toward him whenever there's some wet weather in the forecast. Well, he's also coming off of 22 points at Silverstone. So by contrasting that with Ocon, this is the race that's going to fall off, looking at the 3-race average heading into Hungary next week. So potentially ride Stroll while he's hotter. You might get multiple 0.6 million gains, where if Ocon has a stinker, you'll have to dump him for next week and save a transfer. And that's where some people's heads are at.
Yeah, I mean, I look at mine. I could bring in Stroll and do it that way, but then that would rely on keeping Bortoletto, which I'm not a huge fan of currently where he is. So I think that's where my thinking currently is. I'm thinking of keeping Ocon purely on the fact that I can't get rid of Bortoletto and bring Stroll in from that point of view. So that's where my mind's thinking currently.
Yeah, I think so many of us had Gabby in the last race thinking he would get that 0.6 million, had the DNF at Silverstone, but he's also now DNF'd in both of the wet races this season. So I think we've got to get him out. And it's just a matter of how we shuffle the lineup to do it. Terry, there's a question in the chat about extra DRS, and I know this is something you were considering to start the week. What put you off to hold off on it this week?
Max and the weather, if I'm honest. So the two combined. Max is traditionally very good around Spa. He's not looking like he's going to take an engine penalty. I know he's at the most on the control electrics and the other part of the car, but most of the drivers are. You can swap those in and out. So in terms of engines, he's actually got one spare. So he's not looking like he's going to take any engine penalties. So I think Max around Spa with the setup Red Bull have got kind of makes me think he can be a disruptor to the McLarens, which is what puts me off the 3 times. And then of course the rain hitting on the race itself. So that's where I was. So I think Hungary is probably where I'm leaning more towards it. If the McLaren dominance shows through, like I think it still will. But I just worry that Max would put a spanner in it if I tried it this weekend.
Got a question from I Want Hummus. Making me hungry already.
Cedric?
Piastri, Hulkenberg, Alonso, McLaren, Ferrari. Should I go with the other 2 drivers being Gasly and Behrman or Ocon and Lawson? Neither are ideal, but I have budget limitations. For me, I would take Gasly and Behrman just so you have that shot at 0.6 million on both of them. Whereas Lawson, I think it's most likely he's going to sit at the price floor of 4.5 million. And I like Behrman coming off of back-to-back double-digit scores in these last 2 races versus Ocon, who's going to lose the 20-pointer after this week. So I'd stick with Gasly and Behrman, your first choice.
Oh, look at that. See, I've already completed my FanAmp predictor picks, by the way. Can we just get that out there? I did mine last night, so as much as I appreciate the reminder, I've been on it this weekend.
I was keeping my fingers crossed that Zach wouldn't have found the Wi-Fi at Spa, but I have an updated slide and he did get his picks in. Maybe he'll forget for tomorrow. August, quick advice for Limitless. I'd wait. Yeah. It doesn't get any quicker than that. I think that wet weather could throw some curveballs at you. I'd wait until it's a sunny day. You know who the top 5 drivers are, and you can kick back.
I mean, Mark has got an interesting point about negative for Brazil. That's probably the other one that I would potentially save it for if I didn't use it this weekend. Those are the 2 races. This and Brazil are 2 which have got the potential to really throw a spanner in the works. So I would say either. Yeah, we've got rain due here, so that's going to mix it up. We know what Spa's like when it's wet. It becomes very much a parade. Like Adam said earlier, it's due when the race starts. So I'd think it's a good one to look at for this weekend. But I'd say if you are holding it, then yeah, Brazil would be the other race I'd hold it for. And we still got a few sprint races left for Limitless as well, haven't we, potentially? But the impact may not be as big once everyone merges towards the bigger teams with a bigger budget, isn't it? I think that's the danger of it.
Yeah, I'd almost rather use Limitless in Hungary next week or Zandvoort coming out of the break than waiting all the way until Coda for the next sprint race. I think that the budgets will start catching up to you at that point. So I'm happy to use Limitless on a non-sprint weekend. Terry, interesting question from Katharina in the chat. Sauber, Aston Martin, or Haas? Which one to choose? Now, there's pros to all of them. Sauber at this point, they're looking for their 7th straight 0.6 million gain. And they can absorb a DNF and still get it. So I think in terms of cost cap gain, they've definitely been the safest. Aston Martin, I think, has 2 of the safest drivers on the grid in wet conditions. And they've been doing okay lately. So Aston Martin, if you have a little bit extra budget, that's going to get you a differential over those teams that have the Sauber teams. And then Haas, you've got, not only is this the highest cost cap gaining asset in the game at 4.4 million, you've got both Haas drivers in the top 10 for the sprint today. So they're all very close. I'm going to take it over to F1 Fantasy Tools just to make sure I don't totally butcher the predictions. If we come down here, it looks like Aston Martin and Haas have a bit of a gulf ahead of Sauber. So if you're okay with not as high a chance of 0.6 million, if anything bad happens, I would go with either Aston Martin or Haas, basically as a coin flip. You're trying to figure out if Haas can hold those positions in the sprint versus Aston Martin using some of their wet weather proficiency.
Yeah, and gaining them, I suppose, isn't it? Stroll being far back, being the wet center. That's just bonkers. But you know what they say, rain's the great equalizer, isn't it?
Rain is the great equalizer for sure. Ooh, question about Limitless. If we want to use it next race, what's the best strategy to prepare? Reminder about Limitless is that once that team is finalized, it's going to revert back to your lineup for this week and apply those price changes. So you'd want to load up on these budget building B tier drivers, Hulkenberg, Stroll, the two Haas's, Alonso, Gasly, as much 0.6 million gain as you can, and then hopefully carry that momentum so they gain 0.6 million again after you get your final Hungary scores. Great point by Xavi in the chat. We're going into quali and race completely blind. I mean, I don't even have up the F1.com sims because we're going off of one free practice session, a very weird sprint qualifying. Even they caveat in the article, it feels like we're taking a shot in the dark.
And then the changing weather conditions for good measure.
Yes. Now, I will share the latest betting lines. This is for the Grand Prix tomorrow, not the sprint today. It looks like that McLaren dominance is still there, but Max has closed the gap. Even odds with Lando. Usually there's some space between Lando and Max. In the battle of Ferrari versus Mercedes, it looks like Charles and Russell are right there, but there's a bit of a gap between Lewis and Kimi. Maybe just need to get some positive momentum for Kimi after a rough stretch. Then other than that, everything's pretty standard, just some veterans to round out the top 10. So it looks like if you're into Ferrari, if you're into Mercedes, I think they'll both be pretty good. I still like Ferrari for the pit stops when you have a two-stop strategy race, which is what I think tomorrow will be. Ferrari pretty much a lock for at least 5, if not 10 points in that category, and that will be the differentiator for me.
Definitely. Sorry, I was looking at the Ferrari question there, and then looking at the poll results. So the poll results are you running a chip this week? 53% no negative, 34% none or something else, 7% limitless, 4% autopilot currently. So it looks like no negative is definitely the chip on the table. But yeah, I've also heard that we need some lineups in there, otherwise it's going to be very short lineups. So we need some lineups in the app and some lights on the like button as well. Otherwise, you're going to have to listen to me and just rabbit on for an hour.
But we're great at that. We can do that with the best.
Yeah, we should do that either way. You know, we're cool either way. You know, but you know,
we could talk for days.
Just a fair warning. Ferrari's new upgrades. Wow, that's a big question, isn't it? Especially after what happened to Lewis.
I'll jump right here for you, Terry.
Yeah,
fire away.
So, rear suspension, so the one we've all been waiting for. I think it's been overhyped by the commentators, which is probably not helping Ferrari. This is to give them more of a setup option rather than actually change it. It's to make the car turn in better and just be better in those low downforce settings that they've got. So the idea is it won't give them as much in terms of performance, but what it will allow is to run it a lot lower and a lot more comfortable than what they currently have been. I'm not sure Belgium's best track to see how good it is anyway. So I don't think it's the right one for that from that point of view. So I think it's one of those where we're not going to see the full effect for a couple of races. I think it will more allow them a window of opportunity rather than an actual window of being an immense performance. So I still don't think it's a silver bullet that's going to get them anywhere near the McLarens, if I'm honest. But hopefully it will get them back in the hunt for podiums and that side of things. So it's a real tough one because it's been hyped up so much all the time. And literally it's been talked about. And I'm not too sure if, it's been overhyped for what it actually is. It's a fix to allow them to run better setups and not rely on their braking like they're doing. They're doing something with the rear braking in terms of correcting the understeer. And apparently that's what's caused Lewis's spin yesterday and some other bits. So it's to help with that and to help the understeer and the setup rather than give them an optimum sort of like 0.3 performance gain, which is what I think everyone's expecting to see. But then potentially if you can run your car at a lower setup, you can get those 0.3. So it's one of those, unfortunately. The more interesting one for me is McLaren. So Oscar, so McLaren they're just playing tricks all the time with us. So McLaren have got a new floor in their car, but as you'll see on the upgrade, it's not on the upgrade because it actually arrived at Silverstone. It was trialed in FP1, FP2. So McLaren's advantage is that good. They're actually trialing stuff before they even get to a track, which is bonkers when you think about that in terms of dominance. So what they're doing is they're bringing an update to the track. They're running it for FP1 and 2 with no intention to run it for the race, and then taking back all the data to see if it's worked, and then bringing it back. So the floors on the McLaren are brand new, but they're not on the upgrades. But they were running FP1, FP2 in Silverstone, but we're not run for qualifying or the race itself. So for me, they still look strong. They're bringing more to the car. it looks good. That rear wing, the change they made. I still believe Oscar's on the old suspension, refusing to switch to the new one. It's quite interesting. Lando's sort of heavily been involved in the new one, quite likes it, but Oscar seems to still want the old one and not actually make any changes to it. So I'm intrigued to see if he's been forced to change to the new suspension or not yet for this weekend. They didn't say.
Going back to your point about Ferrari, Terry, it's absolutely being overhyped, this suspension. I watched a Sam Collins video last night on F1 TV, and it was basically like, is this the suspension that changes the course of the entire season?
No.
Looks like no, so far.
No, no. It's a setup change, isn't it? And also, there are some stuff going on for next season as well. And even though we've got a completely different concept of cars, there are some things on the cars that can be continued into next year. Aston Martin's front nose is quite interesting this weekend and what they've done with theirs. There are some things in there which makes you wonder if some of the teams are literally trialing some stuff out for next year to get some data as well. So there will be some crossover of parts on the car, not a huge amount with the regulation changes, but there will be some changes that you can make to a car that will benefit you next year. The whole point of Ferrari's suspension was to bring it in for next year in the concept change. So the whole point of them changing it for this season wasn't to make the car good this season. It was in readiness for 2026. So at the moment, they're learning all the time for that. So I think there's also this time of the year now, some bits going on with that as well, where some of these tracks are being used as a testing ground as well.
I didn't understand that Aston Martin bit until you explained it in the Tech Corner article. I was going all the way through this yesterday. There's a lot of upgrades coming this weekend. Some circuit specific, some to try to prepare for the rain. McLaren and Ferrari bring the biggest ones. So this article continues to deliver week in and week out, Terry. So thank you for that.
That's right. Williams was one that shocked me because they've been talking about no updates and actually brought quite a bit to their floor. We've long heard about Williams saying, "Oh, we're done for development." Then suddenly, there's literally loads on the floor they brought for this weekend. And you'd have to say Carlos's performance, especially. Actually, it's looking like it's an improvement straight from the off. I know Alex didn't do as well. That tends to be what you get with Williams this season, doesn't it? It seems to get one doing really well and one not doing so well. Whether or not they're running the updates on both, again, remains a big question, doesn't it? That's the bit we don't always hear or see about.
This is the time of the season, too, where you start to look at these midfield and back marker constructors. At what point do they start looking ahead to next season, not keeping up with the arms race of upgrades, and then maybe you have these underdogs like Sauber that start falling back into where we're used to seeing them. So the time to keep running Sauber to milk those 0.6 million gains might be running out if they can't keep up with development.
Yeah, I'd say looking at the amount we've got here with the summer break coming up, there seems to be a natural switch off for me for development wise now. That this is it now. Apart from you obviously circuit specific ones like when you get to Monza, different rear wing settings, that side of things, you're always going to get those. But I think in terms of a big update now, I think if you're a bottom half team now, you're not going to bother because why? Unless you've already got it developed and costed and in the pipeline and it's ready to go, you're bringing it. But looking at what they've brought, I think they've used the 3-week gap almost to go. Here's the last big updates for the cars, and that's your lot now.
Let me ask you a quick question about Red Bull's updates. It sounded like they had an interview with some members of their technical team, and it felt like some of these upgrades weren't necessarily for this week, but it was preparing for warmer weather. So maybe Hungary next week, Monza, Mexico, just starting to prepare for cooling, and nothing that would really impact them this weekend because it's already going to be cool enough.
Yeah, I mean, it looks heavy, doesn't it? But if you look at it straight away, engine cover, side pod inlet, the front suspension is actually all designed around that cooling. So it's normally when you redesign your front suspension, you normally have to redesign your sort of side pod inlet, your engine cover anyway, because the moment you mess with that suspension, you change the direction of airflow anyway. So you normally find they all go hand in hand together. But it feels like it's a cooling thing for the Honda engines. Not really heard of Honda engines being a problem in terms of the weather, but obviously they will turn engines up and down where they can. So they've obviously realised that if they can get the cooling better, they can keep the engines turned up, more performance, more power. So yeah, I think from that point of view, like you say, it seems to be heavily on that. Their front wing, they look like they chopped it out. Do you see the picture of it? I think it was on Twitter where the Visa part was. It looked like someone just like literally just cut a bit
They really
out.
just hacksawed that Visa logo. It's funky looking, and Sam Collins had to hold back from calling it ugly, but it's different.
It looked like someone who just got the Dremel multi-tool on it whilst it was in the pit lane and just gone, I'll just take that bit off, and that's it. And see if
someone's
going
to get an angry email from Visa after they see that.
But
how are we doing on likes, Terry?
I don't know actually, but
I'm seeing more lineups come in.
Are we seeing lineups?
Are we good? How are we doing on the likes? Have we earned it?
I think we go for it. We go for it now. We're almost halfway through, aren't we?
Let's go. All right.
That's a cheeky reminder. If you haven't, please hit that like button because we do like people to come and join us. And when you hit the like button, more people see the video. So,
all right. Race Maven starting us off with an easy one. Piastri, McLaren, Ferrari, Alonso, and Hulkenberg locks for pretty much everybody. A price floor guy with Lawson. Bortoleto could hit the price floor, so I think you'd lose 0.4 million. But really, your options are him or Colapinto if this is your budget limit. So I'd cross your fingers and say probably Bortoleto over Colapinto, but he is starting from the pit lane today, so he can only go up, assuming he finishes the sprint. I think it's just a matter of preference at that point.
Yeah, I think Gab is the one I'm trying to sort of, like you say, stay away from. We all got burnt by it, didn't we? I think so. We all seem to be going down that route.
All right. Oh, I went two. So now we have Marta with a really wild one. Limitless, or stick with this lineup and throw the 3x boost on. I would rule out Limitless. I've been talking about Limitless in wet conditions makes me a little too nervous. I don't mind Haas. We talked about both drivers in the top 10 for the sprint. Biggest grossing asset in the game at 4.4 million in value gained. So that's not too bad. I would just keep an eye out on this team here. It looks like you might be price limited. That's why you've got double V carb and Gabby back here. If you have the 3x DRS boost, I would make sure Oscar gets your 3 and Leclerc gets your 2. I don't see a world where Charles outscores Oscar unless something really befalls him tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I was just about to say that. I don't see Ferrari coming into play unless something happens in front of him. I'm afraid to say.
Luca. All right. The first is the Silverstone team. Then there's a double V carb team. And then a double Sauber team. And then there's also double Alpine with Lawson. All right. Looks like no negative on all fronts, Luca, which I agree with. If you've got it, use it this week. In terms of now, we're just trying to pick out who are your midfield drivers. I would say
I'm half inclined to go for the middle potentially. But what's Hazard doing in terms of?
So if you're thinking, let me come back to the budget builder for a second. It looks like Hajar is likely to go down, and Bortoleto is probably going to drop 0.4 million to hit the price floor. So for me, I would say this is the cost cap friendliest. Hulkenberg most likely to go up. These two on the price floor can't go down. Gabby will go down a little bit. Then there's Hajar likely to go down. These two on the price floor and Alonso. So I think it's basically a toss-up between these two and maybe 0.1, 0.2 million.
Yeah, because the Hulkenbergs potentially mitigate what Bortoleto does, wasn't it, on the third one? So
I'd say these two are a toss-up, maybe separated by 0.1, 0.2 million and under 5 points, or really just go with your gut on it.
Yeah, I mean, you go in double V carb or double Sauber, aren't you? Really, it's which one you feel most comfortable with.
All right, here's Mia, who has been really active on the FanAmp app last night. We were chatting for a bit. Let's see what she says here. Team 2 doesn't look ideal, have 10.7 million left. Yeah, 10 million's around the point where I'm thinking you're leaving a little too much on the table. Definitely using no negative, which is great. Don't really know what to do, but also want to avoid Colapinto. So you might be a little cost cap limited where you've got to run the 2 price floor drivers. I don't mind this team. You have the no negative. So if Lawson and Colapinto do rookie stuff in the rain, you're still going to be better off than a lot of others.
Rookie stuff. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Is that a phrase?
I think so. And so now we're talking about the difference between Ferrari and Haas. And if we go back to the team calculator here, you see Ferrari all the way up here at 80 points. And then you've got to come all the way down to under 20 points for the other team. So can you make up a 60-point gap with these guys compared to the rookies? I doubt it. So when in doubt here, Piastri, McLaren, Ferrari, and then no negative will buffer you on the rookies.
I have got just one question from the chat, which is probably a concern. one, good morning, Zach. And secondly, if Zach hasn't decided on no negative when he's at the track, then we're all in trouble, aren't we, really? Because I was kind of hoping that Zach dropping in might say, I'm stood here with my poncho on or something, and give us a bit of actual helpful advice, not sit there and say, I'm still on the fence even though I'm in Spa. So one, good morning, Zach. But secondly, come on, mate. help us out here.
I wonder. I haven't gone over to X yet to see if he's posted his lineup. I think he is leaning toward no negative if he's flirting with it in the chat.
Yeah, he's put it in the chat that maybe it's in there.
It's because this weather keeps changing a little bit. Ooh, I love going over this one because we got the green team on the end. It's a choice between team 1 or team 2. Ooh, look at this. You can afford Piastri Russell with the 2 premium constructors versus Oscar and Max. Here's what I would do. I would take your advantage this week with Oscar and George. Max most likely will go down. So yeah, Max is going to outscore Russell here, but I think you have such a big cost cap advantage. I would hold it this week rather than lose it with Verstappen, and then, potentially bring Max in at some of the other circuits later in the season where he's strong too. You could also run this lineup, and if you have final fix Max in if you have the budget left over from George, or if Max performs in qualifying and Oscar has a stinker.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at that thinking I probably prefer George and Ferrari over Max and Mercedes in terms of a partnership as well. Just going forward, Kimi worries me this weekend. He's not really been on. Yeah, I know it's harsh. It's only had 1 free practice and obviously sprint qualifying, but he seems to be going through a bit of a confidence spell at the moment. A lot of talk about loans and loaning him out, and I think for such a young lad, it's potentially having a bit of an effect on him as well. So I think for me, he needs a summer break to reset and get back on it. I know he's been doing a lot of work with Valtteri, but I think for me, he's someone who during the summer can reset, and Mercedes can spend some time with him. And actually, the problem is we said this from the start, didn't we, with Kimi? We said he's fast, he's brilliant, but there's going to be ups and downs all season with him. And I think we're seeing that currently with him. So it puts that constructor one, for me, a bit more of a risk.
And Terry's the most pro Max analyst on this show. So if he says avoid Max for this week, if you can run Ferrari and George Russell, then he really means it.
I just think Lewis from where he is, George, Charles from where he is, I think Lewis will pick up points coming back. I think that spin is a Ferrari. Whether or not it'd be enough to get in some good points in the sprint, I don't know. But I kind of feel that with that, and like I say, the Mercedes constructor doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence.
Let's see. All right, that's it for lineups for now. Let me show you my lineup.
Zach says they got clear skies, but the rain's looming on Sunday.
Clear skies today. We knew there was clear skies today, but I'm looking at right here. Right here, Zach. You're gonna get wet tomorrow.
Oh, problem with Gaz's car we're seeing? Oh no.
That's okay because I have Gasly and the no negative chip. So I couldn't afford the Haas driver Stroll lineups that a lot of you have. I was 0.2 million off, ran Gasly here. And now I'm counting on Terry to figure out how screwed I am with Gasly.
Look, I posted mine as well if you wanted to have a look at mine.
Yes. That's no negative for any of you wondering what that chip is. Let's go over to Terry. He is all locked in, double Haas, Hulkenberg, Alonso. Yeah, you get just enough budget to do something nice, and you've rolled a transfer to Hungary. So that's going to be a good shout for you.
Yeah, we talked about before we come on the show about Hulkenberg, and to be honest, my optimum move, if you go by the polls, was to take out Hulkenberg and bring in Behrman and Stroll. But I kind of felt like if I could just bring in one, which was Behrman, for Bortoletto, I can still roll a transfer and pick up the 0.6 from Hulkenberg. So it kind of makes sense. It gives me hopefully a bit of budget gain, not too difference in the points to the others. And like I say, free transfers for Hungary feels like it's a good place to be in if I need to pivot out of something very quickly, which looking at some of those drivers, I might need to move. Yeah, certainly Hulkenberg might be coming to the end of it soon, that side of things. So that's where I'm going with that one.
And I think you're going to cop some points today. Both of them right in the thick of things at the bottom of the points on the sprint race. So I think it's going to be a good shout for you, Terry. All right, let's run through. Ooh, Lannister's wondering if Zach has locked his team. I'm going to check. He's coming to us from the circuit, so nothing yet from Zach.
So
I think go ahead.
Pierre Gasly has been told to box the car, but apparently he's still on the grid.
Box the car, but he's still on the grid. What would that
Installation laps. So they found someone on the installation lap. They told him to box, but it looks like he hasn't been able to get back to the pits, which could be an issue. Without having a look, I'm just literally trying to find it now.
So what that would mean, let's say he's unable to, let's say it's a DNS for the sprint. Everybody moves up a position.
Yep.
Good news for Hadjar, Bortoletto, Lawson. That means they're flirting with the points.
I would say,
if it's a total DNS, it's one less position gain for all these guys in the middle.
I would say if you've got Gasly in your team and you haven't got a no negative, now might be a good time to be looking at changing it. Well, you've still got time.
Yeah, we can think about this out loud. I have locked in a team with Gasly, again, locking the team before the show, and then disaster befalls us during the show. Is a -10 worth it to pull Gasly out at this point? I don't think so. He's going to get 0 on a no negative.
Yeah.
Versus, what's he going to get in the race? 2 or 3 points? Like, I think it's going to be okay. Oh, I want hummus. If you have Gasly and an extra transfer, gone now for anybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Because a -20 could be in your future. Or if you have no negative.
Well,
if you have no negative, you're me and I'm keeping him. If you have an extra transfer and no negative, what would you do with that money?
Who you swap? Depends where you go.
Gasly's here.
There's not a lot to swap to.
If you don't already have Alonso, he would be fine. Hadjar benefits, but you'd lose a higher chance of losing the. I mean, at this point, Gasly's screwed on the 0.6 million too. I guess that's another thought.
I mean, if it was me, I'll go Gasly to Alonso if you've got the opportunity to do it.
Oh, now I'm wondering about the 0.6 million because it's now off. If he doesn't start, it's off the table for Gasly because no negative or not, that -20 is going to hit the cost cap change for him. Yeah, that's going to be tricky.
I would probably switch to Alonso. Luca's got a question for Adam in the chat. He's got McLaren, Ferrari, Piastri, Hadjar, Hulk, Gasly, and Alonso, and also 3 free transfers. So what do I do? I would probably move Hadjar out of there for a start and get some cost cap gain into it. And probably Gasly on the back of what we're talking about. Potentially.
Yes. Terry, are there any updates on Gasly? Have they gotten him off the grid?
I'm still trying to find it. Zach's locked his team in yet.
Yeah, so I've got it up on the screen here. Very simple team for Zach. No negative is locked in for him. Hulkenberg, Alonso, Stroll, Behrman. So just a safe core of drivers. He was able to do the Piastri, Russell, McLaren, Mercedes build. So he's showing some confidence in Ferrari here by not electing to do that yet. All right, what else do we have? Yeah, what is happening with Gasly indeed? I think Terry is getting on that now. I want hummus. In the case of Gasly to Lawson, basically you're preventing a price drop with Gasly if he DNSs the sprint and doesn't make up the places in the Grand Prix tomorrow. Lawson can't lose any money, so it would be a matter of maybe equal-ish points with no negative, but Lawson would not lose any value.
I'm just trying to find the TV feed to see if we can find out where Gaz's car is, or if anyone else can see it. Is Gaz's car still on the pits? Has it made it back? I mean, I'm looking at lots of cars on the grid. The question is, did Gasly's car make it round, or is it still part there from the original one? He might just be there now. And everyone else has rejoined him.
Is it something that, and then is it something that's fixable in the next few minutes? We'll see. Ooh, no update on Gasly yet. I'm going to keep my finger on the trigger of pulling Gasly and taking a -10. Let's see. -6 points or more, and he gets a 0.6 million price drop. So that's what I'd be looking to avoid. But no negative does not cancel out my -10. Cancels out all the other negatives.
I think there's a few more lineups. I don't know if you want to check those whilst I'm trying to find out what's going on.
Let's do it. Now you can watch me sweat it out for 15 minutes while Terry tells me if I'm totally screwed with Gasly or only a little bit screwed.
And we got to do picks as well, so we need to get a shift on, don't we, really?
Oh, we do have to get a move on. All right, melted step. First team is the current team. Second one is the debated team. You have Gasly. So that tells me everything I need to know. Stick with the team on the left.
Absolutely.
Third mayor. This lineup leaves me with 2.4 million in the bank and a free transfer for future races. Yep. Wouldn't play around with this team. It looks perfect as it is. Should I use any chips or change any drivers? No on changing drivers. No negative if you have it. I think that's it. No negative if you have it. This is Matt. Matt's already used no negative. Probably used it wisely in Miami. And it's team on the right has Gasly. So until we figure that out, Matt, I'd stick with the team on the left. This next set of lineups, you have McLaren, Ferrari. For the last driver, I only have enough for Bortoleto, Colapinto, and Lawson. I think basically you're flipping a coin and hoping someone can survive the wet race tomorrow, which to me, maybe Bortoleto or Lawson. Lawson can't lose any value. Bortoleto will lose potentially 0.4 million to hit the price floor, but is a little bit safer. I would probably just rule out Colapinto, flip a coin between Bortoleto and Lawson. That's everybody there. I'll come back to the budget building.
Picks. Have we done picks?
We have not done picks. Let's do picks. So Zach did remember, much to mine and Terry's chagrin, who finishes P1 through P3. I think everybody holds station. Zach and Terry think Lando overtakes Max, and that's how. Or I'm sorry, this is qualifying, not the sprint. Let's start over.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be a run back of sprint qualifying. Zach and Terry think that the McLaren dominance is going to show with the 1-2. Which driver ends up in P15? I think it's a Sauber, maybe Bortoleto. The two of you think Alpine. Who the heck knows what Gasly's looking at for the rest of the weekend? Which pole sitter this season has the best Q1 lap time? So who's going to be fastest in Q1? I just think Oscar's going to be fastest in every session. Winning margin in Q3, we all think between a tenth and a quarter of a second. And then how many different teams will qualify in the top 10? Zach and I think there's going to be a lot of parity. Terry thinks there's going to be just a single file line of 5 teams. So head on over to the FanAmp app. You've still got a few minutes left if you've locked in your team and compete against us.
I'm seeing Gaz's car being wheeled back. Hold on.
Oh God, wheeled back.
Yeah, it's going back to the pit lane. They haven't even gone in the pit lane yet.
With 15 minutes left, I think, can they abort the... Is it so close that they could abort the start and give them time to fix it?
I think he's out.
Okay.
Gaz's car will be okay. Really? I'm seeing it being wheeled off to the pit lane. Not convinced on that one.
Ooh, boy. So now what do I do? KM, what's up with Gasly? It looks like he's getting wheeled off the grid. So they have 15 minutes to fix whatever has killed Gasly's car so far. So you could be staring at a DNS and a -20, or in my case, a 0.
Gasly looks like he's out. It's a power unit issue.
Oh, yuck. But fresh power unit tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or fresh power unit for qualifying
for qualifying, yeah. I think they will take him out and then just get it ready for qualifying looking at it.
Interesting.
Let me just double check that. He's definitely going to the pit lane.
Oi. So then what do I do? Lawson's even worse. Like Lawson and Colapinto are all a mess. Am I really going to take a -10 to bring in Signs?
Yeah, there you go. He's going back into the garage. I would say if you've got Gasly now and haven't got a no negative, move out very quickly.
Yeah, Lucas, that's you. If you have 3 free transfers, get Gasly out.
Get Gasly out, definitely. They are. Yeah, I'm seeing he's in the garage. He's out the car and the car's in the garage. So I'd say it's a no-go for the sprint.
And that's the no negative delivering already. There we go.
There you go.
So now I have to figure out what are Gasly's chances with a fresh power unit tomorrow.
Someone's put the alternatives to Gasly subpar. They are, but then they're better than a minus whatever it is, aren't they? So if you're not using no negative, actually, anything's better than that, isn't it? So what are the alternatives quickly? Adam to Pierre Gasly. Do we say Fernando Alonso looks like he's in the same sort of territory?
Yeah, so let's sort by price here. So Gasly's right here at 6.6 million. If you go up to Carlos Sainz, he's running a couple of DNFs and some lost positions, so he's gonna lose value, but slightly higher on the points. Fernando Alonso's the shout because he's likely to gain 0.6 million, very similar price. Hadjar, decent on points. So if you're going to take a -20 on Gasly, I would pick anybody at this point because anything's better than a -20 that you know is going to befall you.
So here's where Adam, you're in this position as well. If I have a no negative, should I replace Gasly? Now I'm thinking if you've already locked your team in, you're going to occur a -10, correct? If you've already used your transfers to lock your team in.
Correct.
So you could change him, but you're going to use him. You're going to lose a -10. If you've got a free transfer, you can still change him, I believe. If you've got transfers left.
If you have a free transfer, I'd get Gasly out. If you're like me and you've used no negative with no free transfers, I don't see a point in taking a -10
when he's going to be 0 anyway. Yeah. So yeah, if you've got a free transfer, definitely consider it. If you haven't got a free if you've not got any free transfers, leave him in. If you've got a free transfer, it might be worth looking because then you might be able to gain some points and some cost cap from somebody else.
But yeah, so that's the only thing remaining with Gasly is now he's pretty much a lock to lose 0.6 million. So if you are really cost cap constrained, you want to avoid that swing. Your alternatives, though, besides Alonso, are also likely to lose value or stay the same. So
Pierre Gasly is officially out. So there you go. He's got a water problem, so it's a water leak issue, which they're going to try and fix. There might not be a power unit problem.
Interesting.
Suspected water leak is what they're classed as.
Greg, can you put up a poll of if you have Gasly, who are you putting in? And let's do Sainz, Hadjar, Lawson, Bortoleto.
Alonso.
Yeah, I assume everybody has Alonso. So
yeah, must be the water. So that BWT coming in strong.
Oh my goodness! Another chip and another weekend of chaos.
I can afford Bortoleto Bearman in one move. Currently, Piastri, Hulk, Alonso, Ocon, Bortoleto, McLaren, Ferrari. Is it worth to make one transfer or sacrifice also Ocon for Stroll? I think that's similar to what I had. I would potentially make the move from Bortoleto to Bearman, just because you got more chance of collecting points with Ollie Bearman than what you have with Bortoleto. So I think if you can make the move, I would. I did with mine, so I would say make the move on that one, just very quickly. Did I see someone's betting on the ×3 and Piastri and the ×2 on Alonso? Have I read that right?
Oh, that's a whole different kind of bold.
That's a bold move.
That's a whole different kind of bold. I'm trying to do this speed math in my head. I don't think it's worth it for the sake of 0.6 million to take a -10. Considering my options, I have Alonso. My options are Hadjar, Bortoleto, Colapinto, Lawson. Or basically DNF'd in both wet races. Most, if not all of these guys. Colapinto wasn't on the grid for the first race, but all DNFing.
Andrew's got one of these weird questions. If I have to include either Hamilton or Leclerc in my team, who should I pick? Obviously, got one of those must need a Ferrari driver. We see it quite often. It's not a weird question. We see all green. We see must have a Ferrari driver. Hamilton will potentially pick up points on the back. Leclerc solid where he is, but will probably stay where he is most likely. Which one do you go for?
I would say take the bird in the hand with Charles Leclerc. He's come to terms with the car, good enough for points in this race, whereas Lewis was so despondent yesterday. I don't know if he can figure it out by tomorrow. Certainly, he could go storming up the grid today, but Terry had mentioned this earlier. These sprint races, particularly at a track like Spa where it's so long, it might just become a train, and Lewis doesn't deliver. So I would say take the guaranteed points.
Especially 7 kilometers in what top 8 gets points, that side of things. I can see it doing a lot more on that one. Any chips since no rain? There is rain due for the race, so we have been saying don't be fooled by what you're seeing today. There is rain forecast for tomorrow, so I would say that's still an option for no negative. It may be looking nice and dry in Spa at the moment, but it's like Silverstone. Half of the track could be wet, half it could be dry. Could be raining in the mountains.
Robert, no Gasly because he's out of the sprint, so it'll be a -20 in DNS. Stroll or Ocon, very similar, Akshay, but I'd say probably Stroll, who we've been calling Wet Senna for the last hour.
Oh, Daniel's limitless team. We talked about this when top of the show, didn't we? You know, McLaren, Ferrari, Max, Charles, and Ham versus Russell. This is a big one, isn't it? It still feels like it's a bit of an unknown with that last one, and that's probably the danger of this one. I would think you've got to go George if you're hell bent on using it and are using it. I would probably pick George over Lewis this weekend, but I'm not too sure that's a certified lock-in for limitless. If I'm honest, I would still be dubious about using it.
So just to re-say what Terry said, I wouldn't use limitless this weekend because we're uncertain about the top 5. You can see in the projections here, Hamilton a little bit higher than Russell. I think the projection includes a lot of overtakes today, but I think Russell's a little bit more at terms with things than Hamilton. The betting lines for tomorrow show probably Russell over Hamilton. Russell a bit better, Mercedes a bit better in wet conditions. I'd lean toward Russell.
Stroll or Ocon seems to be occurring quite a few. Which one would you go for before we have to go off air? Seems like a lot.
Can you say that one more time? Stroll for Ocon or Behrman?
Yeah, well, Stroll for Ocon seems to be quite a common question in there.
I'd say Stroll for Ocon, just like that. Behrman slightly because only B-tier driver besides Hulkenberg with double-digit scores in his last 2 races. And Ocon's really good score is going to drop off after this, so you might save a transfer that way. Layla, Bortoletto, Lawson, Hadjar instead of Gasly.
Any of them?
Lawson's the only one at the price floor. So I'd say if you're trying to avoid the 0.6, you're trying to avoid a price drop in general, Lawson. Just pure points, I'd say Hadjar. Yeah,
crypto, I would say keep Gasly if you're using no negative and it would cost you -10 to get out of it. Keep him because there's still potentially the race tomorrow as well. So it's not all lost on Pierre. You're probably just not going to get the 0.6. But I'm not sure it's worth losing the -10 over.
Yeah, basically you have to pick. For me, -10 versus 0.6 million. I'm not that close to the next lineup option that I feel like I need to save 0.6 million. So I think I'm just going to keep Gasly. Hope he goes wild tomorrow.
They got a lot of time to get that car ready as well. There are some perks for it. They can really tweak the setup.
Yeah, they have the whole sprint race now to get that car ready for
they genuinely do. They have got a lot of time to get that car ready for qualifying in the race. So, yeah, definitely not all disaster in the sprint weekend. That's for sure.
Michael, no negative. Zach and I both have it and are both using it. I think I'll show you the rain. Looking like rain. So I'd use it.
I haven't because I already used it, but luckily I don't have Pierre Gasly in my team. In fact, I am just double checking. before we go off air that I haven't got Pierre Gasly in my team.
Wouldn't that be the shocker with 3 minutes
that
left?
would be, you know, whilst we've been talking about telling everyone transfer out and I'm sat here with him in my team. Certainly wouldn't be the first time or the last time we made that fatal mistake with it. No, I don't have Pierre Gasly in my team, so.
Fantastic. All right,
Perfect.
get those final questions in. George with the stroller coaster. I think he's going to be a very popular pick this week.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a stroller coaster. Bit like Pierre Gasly. We've had this before with Pierre Gasly, haven't we? Where everyone's locked him in and something's happened. I'm sure we've had this season with Pierre Gasly.
For the record, it's official. I've had Gasly on my team now 3 times when he's due to get 0.6 million and has posted a -20 in all of them. 2 DNFs and now a DNS. Strolling for Ocon or Bram, Ed, this is the most popular question of the hour. Leaning Ocon, but it's not a huge difference either way.
So the poll results for the Gasly swap before we go off air: Lawson 41%, Hazard 13%, Sainz 8%, and other drivers with 36%. So 41% is Lawson, 36% is others. So I would say,
should I do Lawson in the last few minutes here? Do you guys want a little mayhem?
Yeah, chuck him in. Do it.
Chuck him in. What would that mean? Means a -10 to get him out last minute. That's it. I'm gonna do it. Chuck him in.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for commenting and dropping in. We appreciate you all.
You guys haven't. I can't post this fast enough, but there's my proof. Lawson's in.
Oh, hasn't gone for it. That's how Lawson does it. Well, it doesn't matter anyway because you got no negative.
And you're hearing it first. I will never ever run Pierre Gasly again this season. That's 3 for 3. I'm done. You can all run him safely now. You're welcome.
Burned.
All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the sprint. Enjoy the race. We'll be back to preview Hungary early next week, and then 3 of us will be back here next weekend. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified when these videos go up. So catch you all soon. Enjoy.